So, okay, what we need to do to analyze the samba is this. Samba is, when you write it as a score, normally people write it in 2/4. However, the cycle, the rhythmical cycle of samba that repeats itself, yeah, it's a cycle of 4 beats. So, written in a 2/4 time signature, it means that the cycle is in 2 bars, yeah, of 2/4. That's not really important if you write it in 2/4 or 4/4, you know. But it's important to recognize this 4 beat cycle, and it's extremely important. This cycle, it's important not just as a pattern or a rhythm played, but the concept. What does that mean? The cycle commands how the music is going to be put together. It's not a conscious thing. It's not like everybody that plays samba, composers and all that, will analyze this. This is an analysis that is made for research purposes, you know. And this concept, it's manifested in the pattern called teleco-teco. And a lot of people, a lot of Brazilians, samba players do not recognize the teleco-teco as of any importance because they don't realize. But everything they write, it's inside the concept of the teleco-teco. What does it mean? The teleco-teco, it starts with a silence. The first beat, it's a silence, yeah? And then the second beat normally is a silence. Normally, not necessarily. Now, when you hit the beat, it will be the third beat of the cycle. The fourth beat can be played, and it often is, but the pattern finishes with a syncopation, which means it doesn't finish on the first beat of the next cycle. And I'll give you the pattern here so that you understand, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1. It's two notes. The first 2 notes come after the one, and it's all on the upbeat. Yeah, and it's just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. At this last note, it plays it just before the first beat of the next cycle. And this is what makes samba samba. And if you listen to Samba de Roda, it happens there. If you listen to several manifestations of batuques, now the batuques were a general term that the colonizers and the society dominant elite in Brazil, whatever, they use that term to classify any Afro-Brazilian drumming rhythm around. Doesn't matter what it was. But a lot of the batuques, they have this concept. Yeah. Now some people think, oh, if the teleco-teco in the samba is manifested normally through the tamborim, yeah, but not always. I mean, sometimes the samba is played and nobody's playing the teleco. Does it mean that it doesn't exist in that samba because it's not being played? No, it doesn't. Because much more important than the pattern itself and the fact that it's being played by the tambourine or whatever is the concept, which means when do you go to the offbeat and when do you go to the beat. But important for what? For everything, and especially for the most important thing in the music, which is the melody. The melody. So if you take all of the samba melodies from the late 1920s to today, you're going to find out that 99.9% of the melodies follow this rule. It never sings the first beat on the beat. There's always the syncopation at the end of the bar, at the end of the cycle. It eats up the one, and then he starts singing on the upbeat, on the other side. This is extremely, extremely important. Yeah. So if you take lá vem, lá vem, lá vem, lá vem, lá vem. When you sing vem, then the beat comes. 1, 2, 3. Lá vem a bateria. Okay? Lá vem a bateria da mocidade independente. Não existe mais quente, não existe mais quente. Festival do povo é a alegria da cidade. Salve a mocidade, salve a mocidade. Lá vem a bateria. Lá vem a bateria. You can take any melody in samba. This is how it's, and that's why it's so important to learn how to sing properly the rhythm, because sometimes the bateria is playing fantastic, great, but the singing is not singing correctly, and that destroys the whole thing, Now, the thing is that in the 19th century, 1870s, put around there, a style of dance and music appears in Rio, and it's called the machixe. Now, machixe has a 2-beat cycle, not a 4-beat cycle. And this is another myth. They always say that the samba came from machixe and lundu. Now lundu, it's another name that was used for the batuques. Sometimes batuque and lundu is the same thing, So, but this is a myth as well, because in fact, if you said samba came from lundu, I would accept it, because samba came from batuque, oh yes. But to say that he came from lundu and machixe, why? What is machixe? Machixe is a Brazilian interpretation of the polka. The polka comes to Brazil in mid-19th century, 1845, around that. And it becomes very, very popular, Now, the polka is a two-beat cycle, And then what happens with the interpretation of the polka rhythm is that it changes slightly and incorporates a little syncopation in the middle of the rhythm, yeah, because the polka is ta 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 ta. Now, when they with the Africanization, if you want, it becomes a little put a little bit of more swing, which is the first note of ta ta ta, this one, ta ta, this one. It's anticipated a little bit. It has a feeling of triplet, so it becomes ta 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 instead of ta 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 ta. You know, so there's a little bit more air between those notes, and then the beat ta ta ta. This is a beat. This beat disappears, and then it becomes ta 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 ta. But it's a two beat cycle, not a 4-beat cycle. And the mashishi is very, very, very popular in the 1910s, the 1920s. And a lot of the music that was called samba then, the 1910s, in 1920s, was not samba like the modern samba, but mashishi. Now, there was a composer called Signor that played piano. He frequented Chiesiata's house. He was self-entitled the king of samba, and everything he wrote was a mashishi, not samba. And even Donga, you know, who was the son of a Bahian lady, frequented Chiesiata's house and wrote apparently, you know, he registered as his, and then there was a huge dispute because people say that it was not just his. Pelo telefone in 1917 or 16, as his samba. O chefe da polícia pelo telefone manda-me avisar, tá, tá, que na Carioca tem uma roleta para se jogar, tá, tá, tá. It's a machixe. It's not a samba. Yeah. So this is the moment where samba is going to emerge. But what we don't have is a recording of the batucada that was played in the backyard. What was the rhythm? How the melodies were put together? But what you do is you can deduce from other batuques that are around at the time in other parts of Rio, Minas, and that carried on and is still being played today, you know. And the concept is the teleco-teco rhythm concept. You know. What happened is that at the end of the 1920s, 1927, 28, in the neighborhood of Stasio, some composers, they started writing music using the concept of the teleco-teco as the rhythm model. And in that samba, to differentiate from the samba that was more machixe than samba, that samba was called samba do Estácio or samba batucado. You know? So then there it is, the element is tying the batucada to the samba, to the modern samba. And then the and what you have to think as well is that we have the groups that parade in Carnival already. Cordões. The cordões were groups with percussion and voice only, yeah, and they played batucada. And even today, when you the drumming of the samba school, people call it batucada. Yeah. So the cordões are there, and then bloco carnavalescos, and they're using the batucada as the model for the drumming. And then they start to write songs based on that model. And suddenly we have some modern samba in the 1930s. Yeah, right at the beginning. 1932, there was a tune written by the composer Caninha that won the prize of best carnival song, and the name of the song is É Batucada. It is batucada, and he says, samba no morro não é samba, é batucada, é batucada, é batucada, oh. Samba no morro não é samba, é batucada, é batucada, é batucada. So he says, samba in the hills is not samba, it's batucada. Because down below, they went in Praça 11, where Chessiata's house was and all that, everybody was playing machixe. But in the hills and in the rural areas, people were playing batucada. Carlos Cachaça, go back to Carlos Cachaça, he never called samba samba. He always called it batucada. You know, it's very, very interesting that. And so you have finally arriving at a modern samba, which is the model up to today, yeah. And this concept based on the telecoteco, it's present from that time to today. It never disappeared, you know. And you go back as well. You have to do the research and compare traditional music from Congo, traditional music from Angola. Now, they both use this concept, and the patterns they use, usually on a wooden instrument, either a piece of bamboo or something like that, doing sort of an ostinato, a pattern that repeats itself, yeah. And then on top of that comes the drumming, yeah. And the patterns, it's almost note for note a telecoteco, yeah. Batuque de Samba. Now, the name Samba, in S-E-M-B-A, in Angola, it means belly button. And o Batuque de Samba, they do this step called Masemba, which is bumping belly buttons. You know, a man and a woman is dancing, and then they bump the belly buttons. In Brazil, it's called umbigada. You know, this is part of styles of samba. You know, so the Batuque de Samba, it's samba. You know, I had the opportunity to go to Angola in the 1970s, and when I saw them playing Batuque de Samba and dancing, I thought, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. The way of dancing with small steps, which is exactly the same way that they dance in Samba de Roda, and a style of dancing that we call miudinho, small, yeah. We call it small. The very, very, very small steps, and the ladies, because they have very big skirts covering their feet, they move as if they slide in on the floor, you know, and playing haku haku, big bamboo haku hakus, very typical of Batuque de Samba in Angola. You know, the use of berimbau, they use berimbau as a musical instrument for Batuque de Samba. You know, the use of impuita, which is like the ancestor of the cuica. It's all there. Now, if you look in the Yoruba society, what it has in common is that they use a rhythm concept that is in two parts, when one part more off the beat and one part more on the beat. But this is a concept that is very common in sub-Saharan societies throughout Africa. It's a very strong musical creation concept. Gerhard Kubik gives concepts of creation of music in Africa. For example, call and response. That is common throughout, you know, and this ostinato patterns that govern the whole rhythm, voices, and everything. It's very common as well. So you have elements that are similar, you know, and therefore it may look like, oh, the root is in there, but when you look at the way of dancing, a lot of the rhythms of the Candomblé Nago or Ketu, for instance, are in 6/8. So very different from the Samba. But if you go to the Candomblé de Angola, the rhythms are very, very similar. And so the rhythm of Cabula is Samba, you know, it's Samba. So for me, there is no doubt that the roots of Samba are firmly planted in Angola, and not. Of course, there'll be little influences because people are around. When you are around, there'll be influences. There will be influences, but it's not on the root of the rhythm or the style. Yeah.